Yo, what's going on, guys? ChaseTheBro here, and welcome back to another Dark Souls 3 build video. Today I'm going to be showcasing my Grim Reaper build, which, like you guys can assume, is inspired by the Grim Reaper. Therefore, I must wear all black, look dead, and use a scythe. This is the first build that I've ever created centered around a scythe, so it did take me a little bit to get used to the fighting style of the scythe. It has great range, but it does lack in the horizontal range for its attacks. It's not like an ultra great sword or a straight sword. It doesn't have a horizontal swing. It attacks on a crooked axis, so you don't have very much area coverage with the attack. That being said, though, it does come up fairly quickly, and it is easy to chain attacks together. And its weapon art is amazing. You can hyper armor through almost every attack. I've even had people use the Astora greatsword on me with the charge weapon art, and I knock them out of it, which is extremely rare. The scythe itself scales off dexterity, and what dexterity build would be complete without the best buff in the world, Dark Moonblade. There were a few choices for this build that I was working through, one of which being a bleed build. I was debating infusing the scythe with a blood gem and upping my luck to have a bleed build, but honestly a blood gem really dimps the damage on the scythe, so I'd rather go for overall damage rather than status effect for this one build, because pulling bleed off with a scythe which doesn't have any combos is rather difficult compared to just having a high damage scythe. You could have also went with a 60 dexterity build with blessed weapon for all physical damage, but I felt the Dark Moonblade made it look a little bit more Grim Reaper-ish, so that's why I chose that one. I've also noticed that not a lot of people run scythes in PvP, and I'm not really sure why. They have a long range, so if you're fighting someone who has a spear build, you can match their range. Their attacks come up very quickly, in fact faster than most other classes of weapons other than straight swords and curved swords, because those things are insanely fast, but they can match the speed of most other weapons. And the weapon art allows you some amazing hyper armor, so you can power through some of the strongest and heaviest weapons as well. I think people are really underestimating the power of a scythe, although there are a few weaknesses that I can name. One of which being, like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have a horizontal range. You have to be hitting your opponent directly on them, otherwise you're not going to really get them. There is no phantom range with this weapon. And finally, all the attacks on this weapon are parryable, sadly, so try to watch your attack patterns, make sure your opponent's not able to read you easily, and do your best to not get baited into any parries. That's really the only advice I have for that one, and sadly that's probably its biggest weakness. But if you become a master at mixing up your attack patterns and you make sure you're not parried, then this thing is definitely a monster. Especially once you get good at landing its weapon art. Its weapon art is definitely the key to success with this weapon. It's quite easy to land the 2 light attacks, and sometimes you're able to follow it up with a heavy, but the weapon art is this thing's secret. There's so much hyper armor, you power through everything, and most of the time you're going to do around 600 damage with that one weapon art attack, which is pretty insane in my opinion. I honestly really enjoyed this build. I never used scythe, so it was a breath of fresh air to me. I had to learn a new weapon class, and I'm really loving it. I'm probably going to use it in a lot of my PvP streams that I do with you guys from now on. It's part of my dex build now. I can interchange between that and all my other weapons, and I think I'm just as good with this thing now, so that's good. Alright, that's enough showcasing for this build, so I'm going to bring you on over to my stats now. As you can see, I'm running a dexterity faith build. I have 40 dexterity, which is the soft cap, and gives me the best damage returns for my points for the scythe. And I have the 60 faith to have the highest spell buff, which gives me the highest damage output from Dark Moonblade. You're also going to need an attunement slot in order to cast Dark Moonblade, so you're going to need 10 attunement. Now, I started this class as a mercenary, which starts with 12 attunement, so I always pour those 2 extra points into attunement to give me extra FP, because I do use the weapon art of this scythe a lot. And in addition, those 2 points are worth the extra spell slot if I need it. Other than that, I just allocate my points evenly between endurance and vigor. Well, in this case, not exactly evenly. I have much more vigor than endurance, just because there's no combo or eccentric attacking with a scythe. You kind of just get in your 2 or 3 hits, then you're out, so you never need that much stamina. And also keep in mind that I am running this build with the Prisoner's Chain, so I do have the extra 5 endurance, 5 vigor, and 5 vitality. So just keep that in mind when you're counting up all the levels together. And that's pretty much it for the stats, so let's go check out the equipment. I'm using the Sharp Great Scythe, which has an AR of 386. Now, I was thinking of running the Corvian Scythe because it does have better scaling and dexterity, and when you can actually wield it, one second, let me just put on the Knight's Ring because I don't have enough strength currently. Once I can actually wield it, it does 408, so it's only 20 extra AR. It's not really worth it in my opinion. I like the Great Scythe simply because it looks like a Grim Reaper build, so it was worth it in my opinion. And also the AR on this thing when you buff it with Dark Moonblade is 621, so it's pretty strong. And like with all my Faith builds, I have the Yorshka's Chime because it has the highest spell buff. I also would normally have a Simple Cestus on me, but it looks odd on the sides of my Grim Reaper, so I wanted to go for the Fashion Soul, so I just didn't wear it. I said whatever. I am wearing the Dark Mask, the Jailer Robe, the Desert Pyromancy Gloves, and the Iron Dragon Slayer leggings because you cannot see them, and I wanted some decent absorption. As for my rings, I'm wearing the Ring of Favor for obvious reasons. It's the best ring. I got the Chloranthy ring because I don't have a huge stamina pool. The Prisoner's Chain for kind of the same reason, mostly the extra stamina. And the Lingering Dragon Crest ring to let Dark Moonblade stay as long as it possibly can. But that's pretty much it for the build, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video because I had a hell of a time playing with this thing. It was really fun and refreshing to use a new weapon. I always like mastering new things. And I also want to know how you guys feel about scythes because even in my stream, I didn't come across any of you guys playing with the scythe. So if you haven't tried it out, I want you to give it a try. It is very viable and I quite enjoyed it. Also, if you liked my video, then like the video. It really helps out my channel, as you guys know. So I'm going to thank you in advance for that. And for those of you just tuning in now, subscribe for some more Dark Souls 3 content. There's tons on the way. And for those of you who want to check out my Patreon, it's posted below. Any support would be very much appreciated. So thank you guys. And as always, I want to thank you for continuing to support my channel and helping me grow. Thanks, guys. Chase the Bro out.